Hello there, and thanks for joining me today along the towpath. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. It's Simon Gates from Opening the Gates. Simon is a consultant to the industry and has absolute gold to share. Here we get to know him a little bit more. So enjoy the next 40 minutes or so. So, thanks for joining me along the towpath.
Thank you for having me.
Today, Simon. So, I've been looking forward to this one.
Me too.
And I think the problem is we've only got sort of 45 minutes to an hour. And we're often guilty of spending, well, it's like the Simon Ledbetter thing of 30 years of marketing in one day. And we get many, many hours into just 1 hour, then I think we'll be able to do well, won't we? So, we were chatting earlier, as we inevitably do. And you said a couple of times, it's a question I always get asked. So what are the two questions you get asked most when you're on a podcast or in a conference? First thing I think is what's next for Opening the Gates, and I think the other one was what's the question you get most frequently asked, or something along those. So what's next for Simon Gates and Opening the Gates?
I think what's next is just keep doing what I've been doing. So my mission statement is I'm on a mission to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents.
Nice.
And every day, waking up, sitting at my desk, looking at that and going, at what I'm doing today, is it helping move me forward towards that?
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, it's looking back and going, did my actions today push me towards that mission?
Good.
And I went and watched someone speak recently in London a couple of times, a gentleman called Sahil Bloom. And he said, if I was to observe your actions or behaviours, will it show me your priorities?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, so everything you do should go towards that.
Morning. Yeah, morning. And I was like, that's so true, because if you look at a lot of estate agents, let's say, and their priority will be to get more seller leads, but if you actually looked at the actions and behaviours of their diary, would you go, do you know what? They definitely need or want more seller leads.
I suppose on that, every action you do shows your priorities, because if you're not prioritising something, then clearly you will inevitably be prioritising something else, won't you?
Yeah.
So if you do watch somebody and sort of observe their habits and their, you know, what sits in their diary or their timeline, then you get to work it out quite quickly, don't you?
Yeah, and like when I heard him say that, I think it coincided with part one release of the 2025 Voice of the Agent of Simon Ledbetter.
Yep.
And I think the question that was asked was, what's the biggest challenge facing estate agents? And 54% said finding new seller leads, basically. And you're like, okay, so 54%, the majority of agents are saying finding new seller leads is the biggest issue. Again, if I looked at your diary, would it be showing me that that is the issue within your business? No, it wouldn't be. So that's a challenge, yeah. And then in terms of another, I mean, you said the second sort of question, what do I get asked a lot? I would say probably people say to me, oh, you've released loads of podcast episodes. If there's one episode I should go listen to, what should it be? Which is really, really hard to answer. Because obviously you were saying, how many have you done? Of your own? At the time of us having this conversation, I would have recorded 190 something episodes.
Goodness me.
And I think episode probably 170 is just about to be released.
Wow.
But in terms of like the ones to listen to, obviously I'm going to say the couple that you came on and did.
Inevitably.
Is obviously an easy answer.
Please return the phone.
But for me, for anyone, episode 100 was huge for me, because that was Damian Hughes, Professor Damian Hughes from the High Performance Podcast.
Yeah, amazing.
And he's got no estate agency experience, but I was talking to someone who's spoken to some of the highest performing athletes, business people, musicians in the world. He's worked with some unbelievable people.
Yeah.
And just hearing his mindset on how he thinks estate agency should be done was really interesting. So that's normally the episode I'd say for people to go and check out first.
I love those sorts of episodes, because it's like the Rory Sutherland, isn't it? Where you find yourself in a position where people who are not necessarily an estate agency give their opinion on it from a completely independent perspective, but actually they tend to give a unique perspective, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think I was one of the things I wanted to talk about with you today was that you are one of the few people I know that was clearly born to be an estate agent or work in an estate agency.
Yeah.
I think Chris Watkin often turns around and says, you find yourself falling into it inevitably,
Yeah.
as most people do. And I know I did. And I know a lot of other people are in the same fashion. I mean, a lot of the people, the guys who I work with, we're predominantly catering or hospitality. And what I find often is those who come into the industry from the outside bring that different perspective, and it can be, I suppose, to the benefit of the client almost, or to the business. But obviously you were sort of in from the deep end early days, were you not?
Yeah, destined for it. So my godfather owns an estate agency, and I always wanted to go work in his estate agency. Did work experience there in the summer of 2007, much to my parents' displeasure, if that's a word. They did not want me to do it, particularly after the money they'd spent on my education to go do that, but doesn't need any qualifications. But yeah, it started at 16 in the summer of 2007. As the market was obviously booming, and then very quickly it went the other way.
That was a proper baptism of
And
fire.
but it was brilliant because I learnt from a very early age proper estate agency and how to do deals.
Not stuff that just comes to you. You have to go
I
and
mean,
find it,
when I was
solve the
when I was 16 and working like weekends, I literally had a phone at either ear, just like doing deals at 16 years of age, which was crazy, like ringing up and going, oh, you've got like 2 asking price offers. Yeah. It's like mad when you think about it for a 16-year-old, you know, like...
to realise that you're in charge of something which is so very important.
You think the day before I'd have to raise my hand in class and say to the teacher, can I use the loo? Yet the next day I'm ringing up and saying, oh, 2 people who just viewed your house have offered the asking price. And I was having to do that because the agent who would have been working is out doing all the other viewings. But that's quite
a change, isn't it? You know, maturity. You know, the levels of the difference between what you were doing and what you're having to do. It's extraordinary. What was it that you said that you just wanted to be in there as an agent? You want to go and work for your uncle. What was it that you looked at and thought, oh, I'd love to go and do that? What was the actual? Because there must be something. There must have been a hook. Was it because you liked him so much and you wanted to do what he was doing, or was it because you thought lovely houses?
I admired and respected him a lot. He had achieved phenomenal things in the business world, and I saw the house he had, the farm, the cars, the holidays, the private school, etc. So, financially, initially, I think was the thing. But also, I knew from a very early age I wasn't going to be going and doing any sort of trade, for example. So I'm not good with my hands when it comes to DIY and stuff. But then at the same time, I was completely done with education. So I wasn't going to go on to university. There was no...
You kept on having to put your hand in the air and go, I'll go to the toilet for a second.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
For a person who deals with such big offers. This is very humbling, isn't it?
But with a state agency, it's like, well, I don't need any qualifications. You just, need to be good with people, do what you say you're going to do, have an interest in property. I loved where I grew up, so I could talk to people about the schools, the sports clubs, the best pubs, the best restaurants and whatnot. And it also was the flexibility of I could be out in my car driving to appointments, I could be in the office. I could not see myself sat in an office 9 to 5 doing the same thing over and over, Groundhog Day. Every day was different in an estate agency.
Even at that early age you realised that, you clocked onto that.
Yeah.
And I suppose seeing what your uncle was up to, it probably sounded quite exciting, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when I did work experience, I saw the glamorous side of it. Again, it was 2007, so the market was booming. It was all flash cars and wine bars and deals being done. But as I said earlier, when I went into it full time, the market was on its knees, and I'd transitioned from a phone on either ear working part time to then every Saturday morning, one of my jobs was to update the window cards. So rather than replacing properties saying for sale with sold or new stock, it was changing the price every week, like £5,000 off, £5,000 off, £5,000 off.
So you could follow the process through rather than just be somebody who's doing admin or processing phone calls, passing on messages. You were actually feeling and touching that process on behalf of the vendors.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Okay, so I want to take a step back to what you just said right at the beginning. You said that when you were plotting what you wanted to do with opening the gates, is you said that you write down what you wanted to do, or you wrote down what you wanted to do, you review it daily.
Yeah, daily.
And then the following morning or that evening you review whether or not you've done something that moves the dial or progresses you towards your goal.
Yeah.
Talk us through that, because I think that's really important, because we all know the Simon Gates who does estate agency consulting and that sort of thing, but I'm more interested in those conversations that you have with those people on your podcast and elsewhere who are performance related, because you've achieved something that few people can actually do. So let's drill down on that. What do you bake into your day? How do you set out your path? What are your plans? How do you structure that?
So what I've realised more and more as time goes on is that the highest performers, whether that's in a estate agency or outside of a estate agency, they might not have the best ideas, but the gap between idea and execution is minuscule. So once they've got something in their mind that they want to do it, they do it. There are so many amazing ideas that are still sat on the table.
And to those people who don't action it, it feels like a chasm between the two, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So like I said to you before we'd started recording, that when I quit my job and started opening the gates, it was off the back of agents saying, we'd like to work with you. And I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I quit my job and put online that I'm ready to rock and roll. And to this day, 2 years later, I've worked with 200 agents. I don't have a website. My website says coming soon or under construction, which, you know, that sounds terrible for somebody who's giving advice to estate agents and all things lead generation. But I've made
my feedback form on there of some description.
Yeah, there's an inquiry form, but even that, like, I realised actually I don't need a website. I've got a Linktree account, and at the top of my Linktree, which is completely free, it says join my waiting list. So again, people go there.
It's quite powerful in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to have a waiting list is unbelievable. But going back to the on a mission to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents, doing things like this. So making sure that there's a presence on social media, the podcast is done, appearing on webinars, going to conferences, just make sure I keep turning up. And
relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Visible. And I'm increasing my surface area of luck, to quote James Clear from Atomic Habits, because if I keep showing up in the places where my potential audience are, it just keeps planting the seed with them.
That you're, again, relevant and visible, isn't it? I love that surface area. I love that. That's a great quote. That's really important in terms of sort of giving people an understanding of visibility, because obviously we're talking about agents, and we talk a lot about agents and their visibility and how important and relevant they've got to be, but actually what we're talking about with this in terms of performance is baking in those habits. And we talk about Atomic Habits and all that sort of thing, which is obviously an amazing book. I mean, life-changing to some people. I know it has been, certainly to me. And I think what I'm really interested in is your structure of your day. So we all talk about ideal days and ideal weeks, don't we?
Yeah.
So what does your ideal day and ideal week look like? I mean, you are literally the most well-travelled man in a estate agency right now, putting in thousands of miles a month.
Yeah.
Going up and down the country. Somebody needs to help you with the diary management, by the way, I think. But what does that ideal week look like in terms of planning and the execution of that plan?
Yeah, so if we take to one side when I am travelling, so when I'm sat at my desk, what does an ideal day look like? I'm sat at my desk with my coffee in the morning and I'm reading the industry press. Yep. So, because that straight away gives me potential content to be curating. So if I want to put something out that day on my socials, someone who's already done a lot of the hard work for me.
So that's the relevance.
So that's the relevance. And then I'll go in.
Estate agency to go today and property industry I negotiate.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, subscribing to a variety of different things. But what I do is I don't just read the article or snippets. I will take it further. So I'll research, okay, where did that data come from? And then is there something extra?
Seeing whether there's some meat on that bone to really go off.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what I do there. I'll write in my journal. So I write in my journal every morning and every night. So again, what do I want to be achieving today? Okay. And then I look back at the end of what went well, what went bad, what could have been better.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of journaling. That classic line of success leaves clues.
Yes.
And if I look back at my journal and go, when was I at my best professionally or personally?
So you spend time doing that. You review, so you time log everything. Because I often know that whenever you and I have spent time, whether it's online or together, you just write down everything.
Yeah.
Which I think is just great, and a great lesson that people tend to forget that think, oh, remember that. No, you won't. There's too much. We're in an information saturated world. You won't remember everything.
Yeah.
So you time log those. You keep a record of everything, and you keep an eye and you review when you sit there and go, do you know what, that was doing really well. Then let's go back and have a quick look and see what I was doing to make that happen.
Yeah. And I've been quoted many times saying this in the past, but you've got the Albert Einstein quote of definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. For me, in the estate agency world, a lot of estate agents will do something which gets a result and they never repeat it. So that goes back to the point of success leaves clues. So if I'm going, do you know what, things aren't quite how I want them to be personally or professionally, and then I look back at my journal and go, when was I at my best? And let's say it was September 2024. And you go, well, what was I doing in September 2024? And look back at the journal and go, that's interesting. It says that I'd gone on long dog walks. I'd got sunshine in the morning.
The little things that actually, you wouldn't actually account for those as being contributing factors.
And what's that saying? The big things live in the little things.
Yeah.
So
mental health and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a bit like, again, as you know, I stopped drinking for a year in 2023, and in that time quit my job, started a business. So again, you go, okay, so not drinking alcohol was really beneficial for me personally and professionally. And then I am drinking again, and you can look at it and you go, hang on a minute, that week there where there'd been a few boozy sessions because you'd had
dropped the ball or
and then you go, that's interesting, that's where things have fallen off a little bit because it obviously saps your energy. So looking back at the journal really helps, and then just in terms of
leaves clues is this almost the strap line of every front of your journal, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And then just on the daily side of things, when I'm at home, I'm very, very regimented with my diary management. So having a Calendly link is unbelievable. So if someone wants to book time with me, there's my diary, and I've obviously well in advance blocked out whether
that's quite disciplined as to the diary management.
And estate agents are not disciplined enough.
No, and I think one thing I've found, we're with Street, and one of the things that always makes me smirk a little bit is Street has this amazing ability to open up people's diaries, and they can have clients can book directly into valuers' diaries and this sort of thing. And I don't know of a valuer who will allow that to happen, because they are so, I could be anywhere. I might want to go there. I might want to stop and grab a sandwich, or I might have to go and let somebody's cat out, or because we all know valuers they don't go in a straight line to an appointment. But it's always very interesting, that sort of reluctance to let that control free, or put it into somebody else's hands. Whereas actually, if you are hyper disciplined and you control your diary in an effective and disciplined way, then what have you got to worry about? Because the margins are all there to be built in. So that's really interesting, and I really like that sort of focus on that ideal day, ideal week, and reviewing what you're doing. I love that sort of reviewing of the journals. I think that's so important and massively underestimated. I think as agents or business owners, whether you're self-employed or you've got a larger agency, we're often very guilty of just running bloody fast forward, aren't we? And what's really interesting is that A, success leaves clues, but also the conversation around habits and the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. And actually often the opposite is true as well. That actually we find something that works, but we don't repeat it. Morning. And I think that's really interesting, because I've been through that recently myself.
Okay.
Sending out some direct mail for the Worcestershire head office. We've hit upon a formula on one of our flyers that we know works really, really well. We started our business off the back of it, leveraging Spectre and QR codes and very clever things that we've done. Well, maybe not so clever, but actually they want to make them sound clever for my benefit. We hit upon a formula that meant our lead generation from day one was like a hockey stick. It just went straight up in the air. It was fantastic. And then I thought, I'll try something different. And I tried a different picture, and I tried different wording, and it fell flat. And do you know what we did? Blame the market.
It's
bloody markets and I'm at. So then I tried something else. I tried something different. And for about 3-4 months, we were sitting there going, this market's a nightmare. And then we're seeing other properties coming to the market, and we're like, hang on a minute. What have we done wrong here? So I sent out the original flyer, and lo and behold, it went off like a rocket again. So, yeah, if you find something that works, maybe it's because it works.
Double down, triple down, quadruple down. And it's that just, I think the whole instant gratification, dopamine hit environment within a estate agency, and we're constantly searching for silver bullets, shiny pennies. So something works, you would assume you're going to keep doing it, but it's like we think, oh, that was a one-time wonder. Let's move on to find the next one-time wonder.
Which is what we did.
Yeah. But if I use my podcast as an example, do I need to still do the podcast? Not really, but I've at the start of the year went, you know what, I'm going to start releasing 2 episodes a week and put even more content out. Doubling down on it.
And look what happened.
And that's the thing which works. And I've had people say, oh, why don't you make it more high production, cinematic, look what we're doing in terms of this kind of thing. And I'm like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I've had people say, why don't you have intro music? And I say, when you listen to a podcast, do you listen to the intro or do you skip forward? And they say, I always skip forward. I went, what's the point in having intro music though? I just go straight in.
And get somebody to pay for
so
some dramatic music.
Just go straight into it.
Like
so yeah, I think that again, going back to the journaling and the habit side of things, just looking back at what is working and make sure that you keep doing a lot of that. And the stuff that isn't working, don't be afraid to get rid of it. I can't remember where I got the advice or heard it, read it, whatever, but it was along the lines of, if you're reading a book and you think it's rubbish, just stop. Like, don't have to feel like you read it to the end. And when I heard that or read that, I was like, that's so true. How many books I've read after a few chapters,
stick with it.
It's not for me. And actually, you're wasting time there where you could be reading another book, which is actually jam-packed to value for you.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, relentless execution, done consistently, I think is the thing, isn't it?
So on that word consistency, I put something on my Instagram story the other day. Consistency is a form of marketing. So my podcast, Monday, Thursday, 6 a.m, it comes out. I would like to think that if it got to midday on one of those days and my podcast hadn't come out, someone's going to message me going, are you alive? Like, I genuinely think that would be the case. And there's a great saying I've got for estate agents. What they're brilliant at is being consistently inconsistent or inconsistently consistent. It sums it up perfectly.
I think it's a phrase that people use but don't really get, isn't it? I think that's what does that actually mean? It's like, well, actually, there's again in the evidence the success leaves clues. You look and you say, well, actually, do you know what? I dropped it. And it's that fanatical prospecting is a perfect example of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is probably the most well-thumbed book we have in our office, because all the self-employed agents that come on board, or anybody that sat in the offices with us, chances are they may or may not have heard of it, but they may not know why it's so important that just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And because it will pay off, whether it's a 30, 90 day sort of timescales, whatever it is. And I think, as you said, I love the fact that you said, if I haven't done it, will somebody pick up on it and then phone me up and say, well, are you still alive? Because I think that's really important. Because on a morning, I know if it's this is tragic, by the way, this is probably more tragedy about me than anything else, is that I know it's a Saturday because I open up my phone in the morning, which I know I shouldn't do, before I've properly woken up. And if it's 7:05 and Property Industry Eye isn't in my inbox, I'm going to have another hour's sleep, because it's you know that it's going to be there religiously. So that's interesting. Okay, so let's talk then about estate agency.
I don't really like talking about it, to be honest.
No, it's a bit of a drag, isn't it? So let's talk about the actual top 1%, because you have had unfettered access into estate agency in a way that few people have. There's lots of people doing what you're doing, and brilliantly so. But you're wearing your sort of heart on your sleeve a little bit, aren't you? You're putting it out there. You're sharing. You're very visible on all things socials, LinkedIn and Instagram, etc. Now, that 1%, you don't have to name names. You're more than welcome to. But what does that top 1% look like to you? Of absolute, you know what? They just get it right.
So, I will name names, and we're not going to blow smoke up your backside, so we won't include Chartwell Noble in this. But obviously they would be there.
I can use it as a soundboard.
But what I've already said part of it, but the gap between idea and execution is minuscule for the very top ones. But whenever I get asked that sort of question, the agents that first come to mind, I'm going to say Vicky Bibiris with Location, Spencer Lawrence with Paramount, and Benji with Hatton Home. And there's a variety of reasons I could say those guys, but the reason I'm sharing it is that when I went into those businesses and showed them the amount of data that's out there readily available, Vicky's a really good example where I was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not intimidated. Was I nervous? Probably nervous, like Location are one of the top firms within the country.
Hugely respected.
And I'm in there training.
Very high performing.
Yeah.
Property Academy sort of won the EA Masters.
Yeah, they had. Yeah. So I'm there and I'm like, okay, a lot of pressure on me here, and Vicky was kind of like very quiet, just in the corner, and I'm like, what's she writing down? And then as we break, I think for lunch, she's like, oh, you shared X. I've already emailed part of our team, and they've already started implementing something you've said. So again, that gap between idea and execution. And then again with Vicky, with Spencer, with Ben, particularly on, I'd say, landlord lead generation, they were like, this is what you've basically shown us today is that there is a role we need to create within our business, like a kind of like a business development manager. Yeah. Or a chief data officer, so someone who literally mops up all the data and goes, where are our opportunities here?
This is what we can do with it.
Yeah, so that's what I would say for some of the best agents I've worked with, where they immediately take action and they're like, this is a whole department itself. And it's, you look at, let's use Foxtons as an example, there's a reason they have a client services department.
Yes.
They get all that data. And I think it was Peter Rawlings who maybe said it. And it was something like, if you buy a house through Foxtons, do so with a burner phone, because you want to chuck the phone away when you've bought the house through them, because otherwise
it's not
you
quite
will.
Ratner self-awareness.
No, but you will always. It might not have been Peter who said it, but you will always hear from them going forward.
Because it's a system that works for them, isn't it? And they've got the market to do it in.
Exactly.
Okay. So of all of those then, and the advice you've given them and the lessons you've learned, because obviously you are, as I've said before, one of the people that I know is just your thirst for knowledge, your desire to learn is actually what sets you apart. If you were to have one thing, and if you get it wrong, I'll push you in the canal, what's your one thing that actually, that is absolute gold? And if I was starting an estate agency today, and I could only do the one thing, that's what I'd do. What would it be? Because obviously there's a whole world of people starting their own agencies at the moment, whether it's self-employed or otherwise. What would be that thing that you would advise them to do?
So it's the guys behind the camera that the audience obviously can't see. But if I look at yourself and Chartwell Noble, Ross Mackenzie at Isla Alexander, James Humphrey Stone, Jack Durkin at the Avenue, and there's probably others I can mention, but in this new world we're living in of self-employed and brokerage and whatnot, very early on, businesses like yours have gone, let's go and get videographers. Does it make sense that one of the early hires and investing money when you're an estate agent would be in non-sales people? No. But I think
tell Dan that, because he was our first hire.
But that's what.
Sorry, Dan.
But that's why I'm saying it, is that it doesn't make sense. You think, well, I should probably get an administrative person, or I should get a salesperson to be.
It raised eyebrows when we did.
Yeah, but actually recording content. So for example, if me and you went into business tomorrow, and I was Chartwell Noble Milton Keynes. Like, one of the first things I want to be doing is going around to all the unbelievable locations around Milton Keynes, higher in the market, nice pubs, restaurants, golf clubs, whatever. I'd want to record loads of content, and makes you think of the whole, like, Daniel Priestley 7-11-4 rule. And I need 7 hours of binge-worthy content online tomorrow if I'm launching as an estate agent.
And that's, it's funny you say that, because we preach that a lot to our guys, and everyone's got an iPhone, everyone can get a gimbal. they can go out there and do. And Percy Clark, who's our agent for the South Cotswolds, his content is relentless, and he does brilliantly in terms of area profiles. And Vicky in our West Midlands patch, who started up her business to great success, she's in Rotary clubs, and she's just put banners up at sort of local cricket clubs, but is PRing that and actually doing videos and content around that, and it's so important, isn't it? We won't tell Dan how well he's doing, because he won't listen anyway, so it's fine, because it's not like he's got headphones on having a listen to what we're saying. But I think it is so true, isn't it? Because it's Gary Vaynerchuk, isn't it? You know, we're all media companies.
and the thing that Gary V's talking about a lot at the moment in terms of the way the social media world has gone is that you don't need millions of followers now to become viral. You literally, the content comes first, the audience comes after. And a lot of estate agents will start and go, well, I don't have any followers, so what's the point in posting content? Well, if you don't post content, the followers won't come. Yeah, absolutely right. And again, if I was to start tomorrow, I'd want to be with a videographer, and I'd be walking around with a microphone to some very nice locations where I am. So let's say Woburn as an example. I'd be walking around, I'd be going up to people and go, what do you love about living in Woburn? Oh. And then you think of all the content I get from that. If someone goes, I absolutely love the Black Horse in Woburn, then I'd have it transitioning into me having a pint in the Black Horse, tag them in it, they're then going to share it.
Because it's very personal as well as the location, isn't it? And you're intrinsically linking yourself to that location, aren't you, at that point, and you become the expert. Yeah. Okay. So let's tie that into the upper quartile then, because, you know, selfishly we want to talk about that, because that's a lot of what we deal with. So when we're talking golden nuggets, let's just say Chartwell Oval Milton Keynes, congratulations, let's do it.
Yeah.
How are you going to attack that market? Because that's not just about the high street, is it? There's a different perspective there. How would you go about unearthing opportunities for somebody who's a completely cold start with a relatively completely unknown brand in that location? Yep. How would you start yourself off on that? We're just about to get attacked by a duck. So we may need to move on.
Make sure that I've got a strategy both online and offline. Mm-hmm. I think Tom Panos says your online, offline have got to be in line. Mm-hmm. I think too many agents do one or the other. Yep. You want to do them in combination. So the beauty of our industry is
just explain that in a little bit more detail as to what that means.
So I think that you can get some agents who will go, I don't believe in leaflets. Mm-hmm. And that's because typically leaflets don't work. You send out 10,000, particularly at the higher end of the market. Do you think someone who receives a leaflet alongside a kebab menu is going to go, do you know what, I'm going to call those guys to sell my house? Absolutely not. But if it's a well-written letter, high quality paper, so 120 GSM paper, nice envelopes, so you're not going to Tesco's and get an 80 GSM paper, right? So high quality paper, so that's like your print marketing side of things, so offline. And then your online, obviously all things social. So speaking to Simon Ledbetter the other day for my podcast, and we spoke about the big five. So again, if I was Chartwell Noble around Milton Keynes tomorrow, I'm making sure I've got a presence on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok and YouTube, the big five. And when I work with agents, I'm immediately looking at the big five and going, if you do not have a presence on any of those, you need to. Because as much as they're called social media, they're more a search engine these days. That's how people are using them.
Rightmove's turning into a bit of a social media search engine as well.
Yeah.
That's a new controversial opinion.
But going back to kind of your question of, we're in a great industry in that people literally will have a board outside that says for sale, which AKA means help me. So if a board says for sale, it means I'm struggling to sell my property. I need help. Yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with going and door knocking it and introducing yourself to that, and then again sending letters to those people. But you can easily, for little, if not no money at all, find out who the owners of those properties are, go and find them online. Well, if people want to DM Simon Gates directly, I can find it much cheaper than that. But you find out who the owner is, and you would typically expect the high net worth individuals to be living in those council tax band G, H and I properties. They're going to be on LinkedIn. Go find them on LinkedIn, connect with them. And again, if you've got certain businesses within your area, what can I use as an example where I am?
JCB, where we are.
Okay, so
Staffordshire
JCB,
direction,
I go onto LinkedIn, find JCB on LinkedIn, look at their people, and then start connecting with the people who have fancy job titles.
Directors and otherwise.
Yeah, and then they're going to start seeing your content. If you start posting regularly on LinkedIn, they're going to see it.
Become visible in a different way. It's sort of almost a guerrilla marketing on that way.
Exactly. They then might like it, then one of their connections sees it, and it snowballs from there. And if you're feeling brave, you just send them a message.
This is what we're up to.
You just say, look, we're a high-end estate agent within the area. See that.
And you know that they're open to having those conversations because they've stuck a for sale board up outside, or they're on Rightmove.
Even if they're not on the market, you know, we're obsessed with property in this country. They might be open to conversation, and it might be, you know, who's one person you know that's got property needs right now that I can be helping, and they might turn around and go, actually, I'm looking for something.
Or my cousin, or or I'm looking myself.
So there's loads of opportunities.
So this is the third episode of Along the Towpath. Obviously David Lindley, who I know you know very well.
Yeah.
Claire Yates, who I'm an enormous fan of, I know you know well as well. And what we've discovered is this return journey almost throws up the gold, if you like.
Okay, no pressure.
But it starts to be, sometimes it's off camera, so we usually say some of the most interesting bits after we finish filming, but I'm going to try and get it in here now. So, controversial opinion time.
Okay.
Now, don't say anything that might end up completely, your huge rise over the last couple of years, don't undo any of that.
Yeah.
But controversial opinion then on all things estate agency, no matter what it is, that you think most people would disagree with you on, that you are utterly convinced that you're right. Now, I have blindsided you there, so I appreciate the fact that might be a bit...
My God, that's such a good question. A point I'm thinking that others would disagree with.
Yeah.
I tell you what, controversial opinion, most estate agents charge too much.
I love that. That's great.
So we talk about raising fees within the industry, but actually, let's say the average fee, give or take, is 1%. For a lot of estate agents I've come across, 1% is too much.
I love that. That's great. Neil Robinson put a post in the FIA group the other day, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he said, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but if you want me to lower my fee to match the other agent, I have to lower my service levels to match the other agent as well. And I thought that's just phrased beautifully. So tell me about that. How would you combat that in a front room then?
Well, when I was, you know, my average fee used to be about 1.5%, so, you know, it could have been higher, but I was dealing against agents who, they might get 1%, including VAT, on a good day. But if I was up against another agent and the owner says, oh, they said they'd do it for 0.75%, and I think we've had this conversation before, I'd go, that's quite a lot of money, isn't it? And they go, but hang on a minute.
Expensive for them,
yeah. And they go, but you're double them. Yeah, and I should be even more if that's what they're charging, because I know the results that I'm going to get in comparison to them. So, yeah, I do. I think there's...
It's that seed of doubt without just being disparaging, isn't it? Well, you are a little bit, because, you know, it's performance related.
Yeah.
You know,
so on that that seed of doubt, and again, you want to have that air of confidence, but obviously there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Yeah. So if you, for example, as a seller, were trying to negotiate my fee, I'd say, Ross, I negotiate for you, not with you.
It's quite neat, that, isn't it?
And that, again, you've got to read the room and think, is Ross the type of person that I can say that very confident statement to, or will he go, all right, arrogant tosser? you got to read the room. But going back to the controversial point, I just think we talk about fees aren't high enough, but too many agents are looking at the corners they can cut to keep bringing their fees down, whereas someone like Chartwell Noble and many others are going, what can we add into the service so that we can charge more money and get a better outcome for the client? So, for example, to quote sort of Alex Hormozy, if I was to ask an agent today, right, overnight, Chartwell Noble, let's use as an example, you are going to charge 5% plus VAT. And everyone goes, well, that's absolutely ludicrous. Okay, but what does 5% plus VAT look like? Well, they'll be getting chauffeur driven round to all the houses they want to view, irrelevant of where they are in the country. They'll be getting tickets to football events to the rugby, the cricket. We'll be taking them to play golf, etc. It's like, okay, so you've got this massive list of what 5% looks like. Okay, so in the real world, if we want to go from 1% to 1.5 or 1.5 to 2, what are some of those things that we could be adding into the service to get a higher fee?
Yeah, that's great. And then you can put it back from there, can't you, and see what's sensible and what's outlandish and outrageous. Yeah, I came from a blue chip world where, jumping on the back of courier bikes and being taken up to Silverstone, and that was just the norm, and we charged a fortune for the privilege.
Yeah.
And helicopter trips and various bits and bobs like that. That was accepted, and yet when you come to sort of, that was B2B obviously, and this is B2C, where actually people are like, well, they're focused on the outgoing, not the sort of holistic experience. They don't see it as a sort of a whole thing to be taken into account. So actually, when we're sitting there going, well, I've just got to win the business.
Yeah.
It's commission breath, to use Tom Panos' phrase.
Yeah.
But at the same time, agents are so quick to allow themselves to be compared to their inverted commas competitors, when actually, what are you doing differently?
Yeah.
Because how many agents can you ask, and you sit there and go, what are you doing differently, and they just don't have the answer.
And when they do answer it, you and I both know, and the people watching, and we would have all fallen into this trap of, we offer the best service, and we do professional photography, and it's like, everyone...
Professional photography.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everyone can say that, but if you're like, if you can say, well, we're the most positively reviewed estate agent in Worcestershire, or we get the most money in the back pocket for our sellers, that's tangible things, rather than just an airy-fairy, we offer great service.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Well, look, thank you, Simon. I, as always, it sort of feels like we've only just started. So we're going to go to the pub now, aren't we? And we're going to carry on talking. But thank you for taking the trip over here and putting yet more miles on your poor car.
That's why I'm having to get a new one.
Well, it was snowing this morning, wasn't it? So
a little bit,
it was whether or not you were going to make it at all.
Yeah.
But thankfully, there was not much of it at all. But no, thank you for coming down and sharing.
Welcome.
Your wisdom as always, and it's nice to sort of spend some time getting to know you a little bit, not just what you do and not just how you do it. So, no, thank you for that. And anything else you want to add in before we finish up?
Just a subtle plug for opening the gates, really.
Of course.
So yeah, if anyone wants to go check out my content, they'll find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I've got a Facebook group called Opening the Gates to More Listings for Estate Agents. So any agents watching, if you're not already in that group, check it out. And I think just the last thing I'd say as well, I know we're both huge fans, but agents together.
Yes.
So any agents watching this, if they are looking for mentorship or actually want to mentor someone as well, I've sat on both sides of it, I'd strongly recommend reaching out. And you think of like how much exposure there's been for agents together, I still come across people who go, what's that?
Heard of it.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if we said it before we hit record, but the echo chamber, and we're in this echo chamber of the 1%, but actually there's so many people up and down this country who do not have a Scooby, but self-employed estate agency exists.
Yeah,
they don't realise about all these fantastic people out there in the online world that we live in, and things like
that. How do we penetrate that? That's going to be the next challenge, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, I think, again, the mission of trying to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents. So just keep plugging away with that and seeing how it goes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Cool. You're welcome. Thanks, Ross.